Hello! Welcome to another episode of Mega Manga Monday. I am Jason Hahn, and today we're talking about My Hero Academia Chapter 365, titled Number 4 and Number 5. And, oh boy, well, we were able to talk about the last chapter, and most of us had some pretty strong opinions about stuff that was going on, some contrivances, some things that just weren't adding up, and things that just seemed like, well, lazy writing. This chapter's a little bit better, but you know what? We've got lots of thoughts and things about it. But as I said, I'm Jason Hahn. I'm a writer for ScreenRant.com. I happen to write a lot of video game related stuff, but I'm a huge manga fan, so we decided to start up Manga Mondays to talk about series that we love. And My Hero Academia is that. Sometimes. But I've got a couple buddies with me to talk My Hero Academia, and I'll go ahead and let them introduce themselves. Carlyle, you want to go first, man?
I'm Carlyle Edmundson. I'm a writer at Screen Rant as well. I usually do One Punch Man, Dragon Ball Super, My Hero Academia. Very unfortunate for me, this coming week, all three of those will be on hiatus, but yeah. And this chapter got some very strong opinions on.
Oh, good. Well, I'm excited to hear about him because Carlisle has lots of great insight. He's kind of read a lot of the spin-off mangas and stuff like that. It's a long-time My Hero Academia fan with some thoughts on this latest arc. But speaking of people having some strong thoughts on My Hero Academia, Ben, how's it going, man?
It's going good. I'm Ben. I'm also a comics writer at Screen Rant, writing about manga, DC and Marvel comics, all that sort of stuff. And, you know, at this point, I feel like I don't have any strong thoughts on the... I've let go, you know. I just let the, you know, low quality of writing, at least, you know, wash over me. And I let it wash my tears away.
Well, yeah, that's kind of... we've talked about the manga on and off podcasts, and that's kind of one thing, even when something really, really, really dumb happens. My Hero Academia has sort of built itself in a position where it could have a really bad chapter, but then, you know, a week or two later, they could have a chapter that gets you really excited about the series again. Like, I remember specifically a few podcasts ago, between us complaining about how things could definitely be better, there were some pretty exciting developments, and I, for one, am still really into like All for One and Shigaraki and all that good stuff. It's just the whole convenience of them, you know, having somebody's heart literally explode out of their chest, and we'll be able to heal that up. And last chapter definitely made it seem like a hero that we've barely had any screen time with was about to be sacrificed and become a teenager's heart, which was quite a stretch. But at least in this chapter, it kind of almost dedicated half of the entire chapter to kind of get into the specifics on how they're trying to heal Bakugo. He's not so much replacing his heart with himself, which was one of the dumbest things I've ever read. But they're kind of going in and trying to stitcher and, you know, heal things. And I'm definitely no cardiologist, but I still don't think any of this would work. It's still pretty dumb, but at least they're making some effort to make it a little less dumb.
I mean, so here's the thing. Here's my issue with it. You know, it's a superhero manga. Like, I've read a fair amount of manga. I've read a fair amount of superhero comics. I'm fine with dumb ideas happening, right? Like, so I don't really care. You know, once the whole concept of Edgeshot going in is introduced, I don't need the couple pages explaining exactly what he's doing in there. My issue with it has always been just that Edgeshot should not be the one doing this. Mm-hmm. It does not make sense, like, character-wise. And, you know, as I said last podcast, and also as I think Carlyle potentially is writing an article on it.
It's written, it hasn't gone up yet, but I missed the podcast last week, and we were in the same headspace anyway on that, so... Yeah,
no, it's great minds think alike. You know, Best Jeanist should have been the one to make this sacrifice.
Yes.
Because he's got the relationship with Bakugo. He's got similar enough powers, right, that you could reasonably expect him, like, he has to overexert himself or like unthread himself and go into the.
And you can see on the second page that there's already stitches on Bakugo's heart from what Best Jeanist did. So he already did this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the official translation kind of got more into that, I thought. It at least did a better job of like clearing things up. With that, it was definitely saying like Edgeshot was going in and fixing whatever Best Jeanist couldn't. But yeah, just it kind of just demonstrated, that both of them are working on it. But I completely agree. It just would have hit a lot more dramatically if Best Jeanist had done it, just because they had interned together, like they had spent a lot more time together. But even then, we've complained about this series that they've barely like had any moments together, like any significance, like Jeanist hasn't pulled on any Bakugo's heartstrings. It's just they've barely made like an impact on each other. So we could have used more of that. But speaking of impact, Mirako got some pretty good ones in this chapter. I definitely was getting some of the vibes of back when she was tearing through the doctor's labs, fighting all of those Nomu and stuff like that. One of her coolest moments, and one of the coolest moments I'm excited to be animated in this next season of the anime.
Oh yeah.
It's going to be pretty exciting, but she's tearing it up. And I remember Edgeshot last chapter was yelling at her to not give up and, to really give it to Shigaraki. And oh boy, she gave it to him. I think she lost a whole nother arm, but she's going into like a rabid, animal mode almost. And I really enjoy the art and the new look of it.
She is legitimately scaring him, which is hilarious given what has become of Shigaraki.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I'll say when I first saw her demon mode, at first I thought it was Shigaraki.
Oh, nice.
It's just like the face with the lack of pupils and the weird wiry stuff coming out of the arms. Like I was like, oh, did Shigaraki break away from all his hands and is doing something different now?
It almost reminds me of the mask that she wore in Vigilantes. She had a tiger mask that was kind of like that.
Sweet. I need to get more
It could be a reference. I mean, we didn't have you here for the last podcast, but it flashed back to America, and I know that Vigilantes, I don't know why I said Vigilantes. I know that it has a large portion in America, right?
In America, but yeah.
Yeah, so that would, they're connecting maybe more to that series.
Oh, that'd be nice. Well, especially because it's just there's so much potential lore for this world that they've built, and Horikoshi's done a pretty good job of that. I think it's just, as we've said, he's built up such a huge world that there's so much going on and so many characters that we wish we could spend more time with. And Mirako is getting more screen time, and I'm all about that. But also, one cast of characters I wasn't expecting to get more screen time, which seems like where this chapter is heading, is Shigaraki's family. I was anxious to hear your guys' thoughts on that, because we've consistently been wrestling with the idea that Shigaraki's struggling to find his perfect form, especially with all of his quirks turned off right now. So him kind of dealing with the past trauma of his family, and it's really kind of just all linking back to the shadow. Well, in our previous podcast, we decided just to call it the shadow realm, or the mental realm, that All For One and Shigaraki and Deku have all interacted in, especially in the last arc. But it just Deku kind of saw that Shigaraki is really just kind of a lost kid who never had somebody save him, and he's always needed somebody to come and help him out mentally, really. And at the end of the chapter, we're definitely seeing him struggle with that, because he's scared of Bakugo, which I thought was pretty interesting. I'm very, that's the one bit I'm kind of interested to see how they correlate that, is just if Shigaraki is mentally unstable, is his regeneration powers not working, or is it just the standard thing where he's, taking so much damage? There's only so much damage he can take before his powers stop working again. So I was curious on what your guys' thoughts on kind of Shigaraki finally starting to take some damage and what this could be attributing his weakness to.
I think it. You go ahead.
All right. Well, I think that one possibility here, you mentioned that kid Shigaraki that we saw in his head. What if that splits off into a completely separate being? We've been trying to talk about how whether or not Shigaraki can be redeemed, or how do you save that child after all of the things that Shigaraki has grown up to do. This might be the answer to that solution. He just buds off a little, that part of him that we know that All For One and to a certain extent Shigaraki, the Shigaraki persona, have been trying to get rid of. That might be the way to do it, is to just push that part of him out entirely and make it a separate thing.
He's like able to physically push it out, not mentally push it out.
Kind of like if you have any familiarity with Inuyasha, Naraku used to do that all the time.
Oh, okay. So it's just like, I don't like this aspect of my personality, so I can literally detach it from myself and it will become a thing.
And most of them are very traitorous towards him.
Oh, I bet. He wasn't a nice guy.
No.
That's a very interesting idea. I could see that sort of I could see that happening, and I think it'd be interesting if they do butt off, if they all like also have quirks, and that could make it complicated for them deciding, okay, well, which quirks do we cancel, because we can't cancel all of them, because especially if we're starting to get to a point where Shigaraki's taking damage and he's getting worried, I think the only way to keep the drama going is to eventually have him, not being held down anymore. So I am excited to see him do more than just regenerating endlessly, Akira style. I'm very excited to see him start getting, showing his quirks on display. But I'm not sure if these people are going to be able to do anything about that once that happens. He's just gotten so powerful at this point.
Yeah, I do think that it would be a very neat thing if Shigaraki did pop out like that. And also, I think it would fall in line with the trend of these chapters where, like, it sort of gives Horikoshi a cop-out where he can be like, well, look, they saved this Shigaraki child. They murdered the monstrous, like, All For One Shigaraki hybrid thingy, but they saved the child. So, mission accomplished. And it allows him to sort of like, let Deku and Co. feel like they have the moral high ground about this win.
Right.
It's interesting because that also kind of would parallel the ending of Dragon Ball Z, with Goku coming back and training Oob after the evil part of Boo gets reincarnated. If this Shigaraki part gets cut off and now we have a new unburdened by the sins of his actions Shimura child, then we can start to train him to be the hero that he probably wanted to be as a kid.
Wow.
Yeah, that would be neat. I think that would actually, when you put it like that, that would be a nice little ending.
Oh boy, just
maybe you could be friends with Eri,
Yeah.
Oh my god, that would be too cute.
Well, it's just getting into the psychological ramifications of Shigaraki's become so ridiculous that he can literally like birth life from his amalgamations of just.
He's got fingers and he's got mouths. Why not other parts?
Yeah.
We'll just come up with a whole like living being that's a soul that grows and has its own experiences. It's like, oh boy, that's something that doesn't happen every day. But it's just like they've kind of teased with the whole like quirk singularity, and Shigaraki is definitely that at this point. And that's kind of another thing I really enjoyed about the last chapter too, is our little glimpse over on the politics, like world politics, of America like decide, and them talking about how all the world powers are like already talking about how they can get Shigaraki on their side, and you're just like, whoa, they really don't believe that these heroes are going to be able to succeed. But it makes sense after they sent their number one hero, Stars and Stripes. Well, actually, I think she went on her own.
Yeah, she went rogue.
Yeah, she went rogue, and she got taken out. So I can see how they're being a little, nervous about the whole situation. But it's just a small glimpse of like the lore that we're interested in learning about, and then they just jump away to it because there's just so much going on. Boy, I would almost want. Oh, it'd be great if like DC or some actual American company are just like, hey, we're gonna do a whole My Hero Academia spin-off, but it's gonna all be America like heroes and stuff. I think that'd be really interesting.
I wouldn't read that.
No?
No, because like I feel like what makes My Hero Academia able to do this sort of world building on this mass scale is like the fact that it's weekly. Whereas like a monthly superhero comic, like I think that monthly superhero comics kind of need multiple titles to make a grand world. I'm not saying that there aren't indie titles that are monthly that don't have great world building and a large cast of characters and things, but like to sort of like if you want a lore heavy sort of thing, setting up all these different players in the American side of like academia, like, I feel like it would be kind of tough to do that as like a single monthly title.
So Vigilantes was monthly, and
was it?
Yeah, it did dive into a lot of that lore stuff. There's a lot of explanation about how the laws regarding quirks got started and the beginnings of the actual like registering as a hero and transitioning from vigilante to hero, and how all that stuff got started in the American model that got started in Rhode Island of all places, gets taken around the world, and that's kind of what the Japanese system is modeled after. So like it does get into some surprisingly deep stuff, and the monthly ones usually are longer in terms of pages than the weekly ones, although not as many as 4 weeks in a month, if that ever happens anymore.
Yeah. Well, I guess I'm wrong then.
Well, yeah, I got about 30 chapters into Vigilantes, and I don't know, the pacing is pretty all over the place at that point. But everything Carlyle said about it, it makes me want to pick it up again. So I'm going to have to check that out some more. But kind of scrolling through some of these pages of this newest chapter, I think Carlyle's even brought it up in some of the previous discussions, but Shigaraki is having a hard time healing that burn mark on his face that Bakugo landed on him. And it's kind of making me think that maybe there's a little bit more to Bakugo's powers than we're being led on to. I know there's a few theories going around that, especially there's like a version of All for One in Bakugo's head, of a former holder of the power, that a lot of people think looks a lot like a futuristic Bakugo. There's some pretty wild theories, like introducing like time travel and stuff like that into it. But I'm almost wondering if, there might be something to that. Maybe Bakugo has some bit of an All for One in him, and we've kind of talked about that in the movies. In the second movie, spoilers for the second movie, but in a last-ditch effort, Deku gives him All for One, and they tag team a huge threat. And then by the end of the movie, they're just like, oh, well, Bakugo passed out before the thing could transfer all the way, so it doesn't count. And they're like, oh, okay, well, that's convenient. But I'm almost wondering if they're going to, bring it back to that and say, no, everything in that movie actually did happen, and he still has some lingering things of it. I'm not sure. I'd be interested to see how Bakugo, kind of fits into the end of the series, especially because he's about to get revived, and he kind of unlocked a new way to use his abilities right before his heart exploded. So he's going to get back up and fight again, I'm sure, even though he shouldn't be able to. But
so the one thing to think about there is like, most of the time when we've seen somebody like get that close to dying, like Toga, or you get your power awakened. So perhaps when he gets back up from this, he'll have awakened a new level of his power, and that'll really hit things. As far as Shigaraki's burn goes, I think it might be a psychological thing.
Mm-hmm.
He's not healing that because he's like, how did this even happen? This should never have been possible. And it's like he's got a psychological block towards healing that, perhaps.
Yeah,
I agree.
Yeah, it must just be Bakugo, like, just... Oh, you probably got a better Ben.
Yeah, well, I think that, like, his, like, whole psychological inner conflict at the end of the chapter kind of points to that as well. Mm-hmm. Where, like, I don't think he'd be going through this turmoil now if it wasn't going to affect his performance in the fight coming out. Unless, it could just be, like Carlyle said, where he's just going to pop out a new... he's going to pop out the child part, and then... But in that case, I think the rest of his body would then heal, because the child part's holding back his ability to heal, because that's the part that's scared. And is that
would be a perfect time for, like, all that happens, he starts to heal back, and then, we've got these other bodies running around, maybe they have quirks, like you said, and we don't know who to, like, neutralize the quirk of. Things are looking really bad. Now he's back at full strength. That's when Deku shows up,
Hopefully, because I am ready for them to get back to Deku, no matter what he's doing, because they definitely left that on a cliffhanger. Feels like quite a few chapters ago at this point.
Yeah, I feel like Deku isn't going to immediately join the fight against Shigaraki because of that cliffhanger, where it was like, "What's that up ahead?" And then we never found out. Mm-hmm. So, he's going to have some intermediate fight.
Yeah, I almost wonder if it's going to be against All For One, because last we saw All For One, he's definitely kind of gotten to the pinnacle of his powers, but he's on a strict time limit, so he's going to try to clean up Endeavor and Hawks and everybody over there, and make his way towards Shigaraki to save him. In this prison that they have him in. But I think it'd be really interesting if Endeavor, either escapes or knocks everybody out conveniently at his current battleground and starts to work towards Shigaraki, and if him and Deku end up like bumping into each other as that mischievous Shonen Jump cover that they tease that I like to bring up.
Yeah.
It just still baffles me. It still baffles me marketing-wise why they would spoil things that weren't going to happen.
It's metaphorical, It's like they're not actually going to fight. It's just Deku represents the force of the heroes, and All For One represents the force of the villains. And there you go. They're totally not going to fight. No, it's totally not an actual spoiler.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I feel better now. Thanks, Ben.
Yeah. I mean, it might actually be that, but
yeah,
we'll just have to find out. I'm sort of treating it like I'm not going to view this as a hard spoiler until it actually happens. In which case, I'll be like, "Aha! I knew it."
That was weird. I guess at that point, those were kind of my notes. What were some other things about this chapter that are really stuck out for you guys?
I think so. I saw this a lot in the Shonen Jump app comments for the chapter, but I think the art, while really good, like you can't deny that there's some amazing moments in the art. I think it is. Sort of like maybe it's just Shiraki's massive amount of hands and stuff, but it does kind of like obfuscate what's going on in the fight somewhat.
Oh, absolutely.
It can be hard to decipher what's going on from panel to panel, and as I said, you can't deny it's great art, but like I think maybe this fight will improve once. The manga gets colored or once it gets animated.
Yeah. I would totally agree with that. There definitely have been times where I read the chapter and I was like, I'm not sure what happened there. So see what other people thought here. Because I can't tell exactly what was supposed to go on in that panel. And part of that's just like, you know, when you're getting just these panels worth of instantaneous action, it can be difficult to tell. And part of it is like when everything is so detailed, and that's pretty cool, but when everything is so detailed, it becomes difficult to tell what is important and what is not important.
Right. Well, we should.
I think that's one of those things that One Punch Man does really well. It's Murata is known for his very detailed backgrounds and artwork, but it kind of contrasts with the characters sometimes, because they have these. They often have a little bit more simpler designs. Well, unless you're Genos.
Yeah, but you know, Genos. When is he in an important fight? You know,
he's the Vegeta
just
of that
pieces
series.
of him.
Yeah. Well, I completely agree. Especially, I had some issues with this chapter. Especially, there's a moment where Shigaraki was just yelling. He's like, "I already destroyed that one," and then you see him just like kind of fling forward, and then they have a really jarring like switch of perspective, because you previously see Genis like on. There's a bunch of film terminology that I can't think of right now. It's been a while since I studied all that, but there's like a line of perspective.
180 line.
Yeah, and I felt like they really kind of, I don't want to say whole 100% messed that up, but they at least got really close to breaking that on, like, I think it was like page 4, 5, or 6 or somewhere around there. But it's when Shigaraki's like rushing towards Genis, and then it just snaps like from Shigaraki to Genis, and then you're like, wait, is that... Did he get hit, or did he just fly past Genis? What's going? And then Miriko's there all of a sudden. And
yeah,
you're like, what? Wasn't she being restrained a second ago? Like,
and with the Miriko thing, like you can barely see Shigaraki's face there. Well, it's there, but it's like it's kind of like an optical illusion where you have to stare at it for a bit, and then suddenly it pops into focus, and you're like, oh, there he is.
Yeah.
The like explosive force lines of the kick are obscuring the majority of his face, and it blends in with his hair.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's jarring for sure. Well, and that's kind of what you get for. I mean, I'm 100%. I love like Naruto does it really well too, where they have a character that doesn't really have like any magical powers or anything like that. Like Miriko is 100% just like a melee fighter, so you're just counting on like her getting up close and personal, which is kind of tough to like illustrate, I think, when you have a character like Shigaraki who's just essentially can blobify. Like he's just, oh, I'm gonna just have a bunch of fingers and flesh just appear over there, and you're like, this is really hard to read. But I agree. I think especially once it's animated and or colored, it'll be a lot easier to tell. But again, just really enjoyed Miriko in this chapter. She got her other arm ripped off, and then very quickly, while Genis is also focusing on healing Bakugo, you just kind of see him off-paneling, like throwing some, do we want to call it denim? Just throwing some denim around Miriko to heal it. But yeah, I really liked just how she's just...
That would be another case of a panel I didn't understand what was going on in.
Yeah.
That's why she has that there.
It was really hard to even tell that was Genis for me. Like, I just saw Miriko and then some blob. And then...
Yeah. It was one of those things where because I've read the chapter, like, because I was anxious to see what happened, so I read the fan sub, and then I like to read the chapter officially before we converse about it. And it definitely took them cleaning it up and me reading it a couple times to even tell what that was. But in contrast, it was literally until we were just talking about it that I noticed that Shigaraki's face was in that panel we were just talking about. Because, same thing. It's just like the impact, the hair, just a lot of conflicting things. And on a weekly series, it's just outstanding that he can draw all of this. So, I mean, it's
I think that might be part of why we keep getting these 2-week between chapters.
Yeah.
This is so much detail and trying to get all these fingers and stuff. It takes a lot of time.
Yeah, and more power to him. And I'm fine waiting for good quality, which this is. I think it's just very confusing. Like, also, I feel like there's so much that gets done that oftentimes big moments are sort of not emphasized as much as they could be. Like Mirko getting her arm bitten off, like happened like in a small panel in the corner of a page. Yep. Mm-hmm. That can be very hard to miss. Like when I first read the chapter, I didn't even realize that they showed her arm getting torn off. I just thought, oh, she's lost her arm at some point. That's weird. But only on like reread.
It's kind of, it's an issue that's kind of compounded too. To go into more detail on that, like we've seen Mirko like lose 2 limbs already, so and we're consistently like, I'm not somebody who remembers, okay, it was the right limb that's a robot and her left leg that's robotic. So when you see her getting something ripped off, you're just like, oh, okay, well that had to be the robotic one.
Yeah. And
then you see further on, you're like, oh wait, he's wrapping up an arm. That's wrapping up an arm, and oh, that was a new one. that was her other arm. And yeah, again, I didn't realize that until I read it again. But to kind of go into the pacing of this whole series, like, it's just, if you think about all the like huge attacks that we've seen go against Shigaraki, like we saw Sun Eater do his gigantic Chimera hybrid laser. And then almost immediately after that, we had Bakugo do like the biggest explosion move he's ever done. And it's just kind of hard to like, excuse me, make these all feel like the extravagant moves that they're supposed to be, because we're getting them one after another. So we're not really getting the time to like focus on the impact of like Mirko's other arm being ripped off, or, Sun Eater finally pushing aside all of his doubts that he's always had about himself to do one of the coolest attacks the series has ever seen, but it just kind of gets pushed to the wayside because we're going against a dude who can just regenerate everything, and you're instantly flooded with another really cool thing that happened before that and after that. So it's just I almost wish that the series would maybe switch to bi-weekly or monthly. Then these moments have more time to breathe. But as you guys have said in previous podcasts, it seems like Horikoshi's kind of trying to wrap this thing up.
Yeah, I think the end of the year is long gone. We're definitely not ending it by the end of the year like he had indicated. Yeah,
because that would mean we have like a dozen chapters left. And I don't see this wrapping up in a dozen chapters.
Yeah, there's no problem with it taking longer than that, and I might prefer it if we can just, like I said, let these moments breathe a little bit. We can have a little bit more time with this particular big attack. Like if it's going to be a big deal, we got to treat it like a big deal visually.
Yeah, and I think that's another thing that will be remedied once it's animated too. But sorry, what'd you have, Ben?
I was just going to say, I think this is going to be mid 2023 wrap up. That's my projection.
That feels good. I think manga artists have a really hard time narrowing down exactly when they'll be able to end something, but
like Oda 20 years ago said that One Piece was going to end in like 3 years.
Oh yeah, I've kept up on all those too, and just reading like, I originally just had it planned to be them fighting these people, but then at one night I accidentally came up with 12 new characters that spawned hundreds of episodes, and you're just like, geez, man. But My Hero Academia, I would be very interested to hear like more on Horikoshi's like creative process. That's kind of one thing that is taken away from I feel like some of the official translations and stuff is we don't get like the editor notes that some of the other releases have. And there's some pretty interesting insight in some of those, especially in the volumes. Please support the official releases.
Yes.
And because they're absolutely worth it. They fill them with a lot of very interesting, introspective stuff and kind of what the author's going through at that time of their lives. And sometimes you can see how it's affecting them. So,
and also having a physical copy too is like, I mean, I know some people prefer reading digitally, but I always like having a physical copy of what I'm reading in my hands. Just like doing the actual turn page and like being met with those moments, I don't know, it's just physically it hits a lot harder for me.
Yeah. Yeah, there's some series that really, really, really play to the whole pain turning, and I think the latest chapter of Chainsaw Man definitely had that too, where it really contributes to the comedy sometimes when you just have that transition to the next page turn. And huge manga or huge action mangas like Dragon Ball Z, especially, like, we're experts at that. It's still one of those things that's definitely influenced a lot of these guys that are currently putting out series, and some of them pay tribute to it, and some of it have even been able to improve on it. So, yeah, can't stress enough. Manga's cool.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I've kind of thrown out my ideas on what we think will happen next. I think it'd be cool if these things that are spawning off of Shigaraki force them to have to be picky and choosy on quirks they need to cancel out, because I really want to see Shigaraki do something else other than just spawn limbs and stuff like that. So I'm definitely thinking I'd be very surprised if we jump to another fight after this. I think we're set for to be in this fight a little bit longer, but
I think you can use to be stuck.
I mean, there's still, like, we haven't seen anything that's going on in, like, 2 or 3 of the battlefields at this point.
Yeah, but we got to get back to Dobby. Don't forget, Dobby's
the one that
back.
we thought was over, that one's also still going on.
Yeah, you know how it had a nice resolution and all that stuff, and it wrapped up clean. No, you got to go back to that well that we've already drained dry.
Well, it's just kind of also the whole toga thing. There's been a couple chapters that were like, you know what, it'd be nice to jump over to the toga thing right now. And then there's other chapters where you're just like, oh man, we just saw like a world-shaking attack. It would be kind of feel weird to go to what we feel like at this point a smaller scale battle that's going on at Toga's.
I assume the toga thing's going to get resolved off screen at this point.
Oh boy! Oh no way! I can, even though Steven's not here, I can feel him yelling at that.
No, I mean, I'm kidding partially, but at the same time, like, Horikoshi is not even, like, flashed to it at all. Like, not even in the, when Dabi was defeated and he flashed all these different battlefields. Or at least, I don't remember him flashing to the Toga Ochako fight. So, I don't know.
He's taking Nejire for Ochako, so I'll be like, oh, did we just flat? Nope, that's Nejire.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With her short hair now.
Right. Well, that's another thing too, is like Toga still has like twice his blood, so she still has that quirk at her disposal, which could radically alter any of these battles. Like if they were suddenly able to use twice his ability to double any one of these monsters that they're currently fighting, it would be catastrophic.
And that was such a good Chekhov's gun. Like, I would have much preferred if that was the thing that happened instead of the whole Dabi resurrection. Because, like, Horikoshi was trying to make things seem even more helpless for the heroes. I think it would have been great to just introduce the twice thing there and maybe jump to the Toga fight for a little or something. Mm-hmm. And just be like, yeah, now you got to defeat double the forces that you thought or something. I don't know. We've got...
There's a lot going on.
Yeah.
Well, especially like we had almost a whole chapter like focusing on what Red Riot, and we got a couple like artwork things of some villains that we hadn't really seen before, and some guy that we were led to believe may have been the one that killed Midnight, and there's just so much going on. I don't know. We would like it to be a little bit more focused, so I'm hoping that they stay here for a little bit. But yeah, as soon as you think one fight is over, they're like, oh no, Dabi's back too, and you're like, oh come on, we need less things. We need this to be more focused.
Yeah. I think that would be fine if it was the middle of the series and it's like, ooh, Dabi's back. But it's the end of the series. Wrap things up. You don't need to be like, ooh, aren't you excited to see how this develops? No, we want to see how things end.
Yeah. Because it feels like you're ready for this to end. So how about we all just agree and get there?
Yeah.
Well, with that all being said, as I said kind of in the beginning of the chapter 2, the series still has the potential to like drop an amazing chapter that can shock us and excite us. And you know what? That's kind of one reason we keep doing these, even though some of the plot twists, if you want to call them that, aren't quite as satisfactory as we'd like, and they're not able to focus on the things that we'd like them to. Next week might be a banger, or whenever the new chapter comes out. So
yeah, I mean, like, I feel like part of the reason why we're all so critical is that because we deeply love this series, right? We're definitely invested, and we've seen how good this series can be. Like, if this was one of the manga that is just kind of there, right? Like, but is not that exciting. Like, I don't know. I don't want to call out any mangas in case it's people's favorite, but this is one of the many manga that's
sort of have your own opinion on a podcast, my friend.
Yeah, but I don't want to punch down because I'd call out something like, I don't know, Aliens Area or something, which I actually think is a good series. But it's like, if it has a bad chapter, I'm like, okay, that's fine. I don't have high expectations for this anyways, but yeah, if it's My Hero Academia, I'm like, bad chapter. You can do better, Horikoshi.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, we've had so many great moments that we've already seen that we we know that it can be better, and so it is always a little bit disappointing when it does dip down. Yeah. But I've been trying to look at this, especially over the course of the summer, and since we've started this final fight. Like, this is just one chapter. I'm not gonna get too upset about any one chapter. Mm-hmm. This Bakugo back to life thing may be the things tilting. It depends on how this goes, but for now I'm trying not to get too focused on individual chapters and trying to keep the bigger story in mind.
Mm-hmm. And that's one thing too about a lot of these bigger series, especially when we're week to week. It's a very different experience than being able to read the whole thing. So this arc might not feel so out there once we're able to read the whole thing in one chunk. But that's kind of also going back to the next chapter might be a banger. So we'll have to wait and find out. But Mega Manga Mondays will be there to talk about it. But this has been the end of this has been My Hero Academia chapter 365, and I think we can go ahead and move into plugs and recommendations. Unless you guys have any final thoughts.
My final thought is, where did that wash bubble come from? We need information on that.
Oh yeah. Yeah, Edgeshot has been delicately keeping the bubble from. Was it the washing machine?
It's the washing machine guy,
yes.
yeah.
From
and he was there. I did go back and check. 343. He's coming through the Kurogiri portal with everyone else. I don't know why we brought him to the fight, but he is here. I don't know which battlefield he ended up on. I don't know why Edgeshot asked him for a bubble, but all those things happened at some point.
He needed surgical sterilization. Emergency. Yeah, and he was right.
Will be able to provide.
Yeah.
Oh boy. And just the whole idea he was able to keep a bubble safe all the way up until this point. It's weird, but it's kind of I guess Horikoshi just trying to make that Bakugo save makes sense any way he can, even though it's just like too far gone at that point.
Yeah, I think this is what happens when you you come up with something that doesn't really make sense, and then you try to explain why it does make sense, and it just opens up more and more problems. Oh, won't he get infection from Edgeshot's whole body going in there? No, he sterilized himself with the bubble.
With a bubble, it's
but
fine.
Why did he have that bubble?
The washing machine hero from the anime season 1, the rescuing guys. Oh well, where were they? He's been holding on to it, so he can hold on to bubbles. Let's Mirako. Isn't she cool? Oh, all right.
I mean, it's the same sort of suspension of disbelief as like any of these quirks, right? Like I fully believe that Wash can make bubbles that can follow people around and like stay out of trouble, not get popped until they're needed to.
Yeah.
I believe that. That's
fine. It's just it just comes back to, okay, now you have to go, why did he grab that? It's like, just in case I need to sew somebody up with my own body.
Yeah.
Because I might have
Venus didn't have one for his stitches.
Yeah.
He's just Genius is like, I'm just gonna do this dirty.
Oh, I would love it if like later Genus is just like, oh crap, I can't keep bubbles from popping. I had one and I accidentally dropped it or it popped in my jeans.
I think it would be hilarious if Bakugo like comes back to life here and like wins this fight, but then dies of an infection later on because Genus used dirty threads to stitch up his heart.
Oh boy. Well, and that's another thing too. Is it kind of I would be surprised. It almost seems like it's gonna off-panel Edgeshot like dying, because we have a whole like just black panel of remaining in this extreme state. Surely eats away at Edgeshot's life, and we're just like, it'd be cool to see that, I guess. But
Oh, wait. This isn't a character like Midnight who no one cares about. This is Edgeshot, fan favorite hero that everyone loves.
yeah, I mean, we're going to be selling so many new posters of Edgeshot because people are so busy crying over the ones that they have that they're ruining their Edgeshot posters. So
Exactly. I've already torn like 2 or 3 of my Edgeshot posters in rage over Edgeshot dying. I need to restock.
yeah, as long as you've only done a couple of them, that means you still have plenty left. So
Yeah, no, I've got a good backup, but I want to have at least over 100 at all times. And I've dropped down to 99, so.
You just head to one of those dollar stores. You'll find them. You can take
Yeah.
back of them.
Yeah, well, that's if they're not sold out. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah.
They did have stacks of them. Who knows now?
Yeah.
well, guys, I think I think that'll do it for this episode of Mega Manga Monday. Go ahead and moving into some plugs and recommendations. I'm Jason Hahn. Please check out other episodes of Mega Manga Monday. You can follow us on Twitter at Manga Mondays for updates and let you know when episodes are coming out. But we also like to talk about series like One Piece, Dragon Ball Super. We've got a new podcast coming about the new Dragon Ball Super superhero movie, which was way cooler and way better than the title suggests. Please check out Mega Manga Mondays and subscribe and all that good stuff. We're also on YouTube. You can reach out to us, let us know what your favorite parts of these chapters were. And also, if there was anything we missed, please let us know. We'd love to hear from you. But I, Jason Hahn, also have a YouTube channel called Honzy and Friends. I like to stream on Wednesdays and Sundays. I actually just uploaded a new Let's Play video, which is a lot shorter than my normal streams, of me and my good buddy Mike playing RoboCop versus Terminator. It's an old Sega game that is awful, but we had a lot of fun playing it. And if you check it out, we'll probably make you laugh once or twice. Find that on Honzy and Friends on YouTube. And Ben, any plugs or recommendations, man?
Yeah, for my recommendations, this is recommending a popular show, but I'll do it anyways. The first episode of the 6th season of Rick and Morty just came out last night, and it was really good. So if you maybe stepped away from the show like in season 4 or 5, because I know that some people were disappointed with those seasons, although I personally liked them. Maybe check out season 6 because I thought it was really fun and one of the best season premieres that the show has had. So check that out if you're a Rick and Morty fan. For plugs, I have a YouTube channel of my own called YGO From Zero, where I go over some historical formats of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Trading card game. So if that sounds interesting to you, definitely check it out.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to have links for all these plugs and recommendations in the description. So definitely check those out. Carlyle, how about you, man?
Yeah, I mostly work on a visual novel that's on hiatus at the moment, but will be back within a month or so. Elven Revenue Service, fantasy, visual novel, dating. It's supposed to be a very interesting combination of things, and I hope that people enjoy it. You can always go get the demo right now, and hopefully I'll get back to working on the full version, and you can see that next year.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, yeah, check that out and follow that account on Twitter as well. If you give the demo a shot, please let him know what you thought of it. And I'm sure Carlyle loves all the suggestions and stuff. So, very excited to talk with you guys more about My Hero Academia. It's on break next week. I heard that they're getting sued by Disney because of Admiral Akbar being in the last chapter. So they got to work out some legal ramifications, but hopefully we have some good art waiting for us when the new chapter comes out. But it's been a lot of fun talking My Hero Academia with you guys. Thanks again for your time. It was great hearing your thoughts, and I look forward to the next one.
Yeah, see you all then.
Yep.
Peace.